Hey, welcome back to another Mr. Bepic video where today I'm going to be supplementing something that I've been saying a little bit more on broadcasts recently. Kind of a new mantra of mine where I say support collegiate regional esports or regional collegiate esports. I kind of decide in the moment, but still, support your regional collegiate esports leagues right now. This is where the future of esports is going to be, I think. And so, in support of that today, I'm going to be breaking down the Spring Major, the last event of the Great Lakes CRL regular season, leading into their LAN later on this spring. So, without further ado, let's see what these 12 teams behind me have to do to make it to LAN at Indiana Tech's campus or get a better seed. So taking a look right now, this is an 8-team double elimination bracket with 4 teams playing a single elim bracket format for the final event of Great Lakes CRL's 24-25 season. And the way that the Great Lakes season works, if you're unfamiliar, is these teams and the ones that didn't qualify for the last event of the season have played through 2 fall minors and then a fall major and then 2 spring minor events and then this spring major. It's kind of similar to the RLCS format in pursuit of ultimately a LAN that you qualify for by accruing points throughout those 6 regular season events. And so this is the final event before LAN. So there are 8 total LAN spots on the line. 5 have already been claimed by the top 5 teams in Great Lakes CRL. So that leaves 3 slots open for the 7 teams that haven't already qualified in this spring major to fight over. And so that's what we're talking about today. I do want to give some more insights on these first round matchups especially, and then what the standings look like as well, which actually I do have in front of me. Let me pull that up real fast. This is what has gone on throughout the Great Lakes season so far. As you can see, top 5 teams, I think a pretty obvious top echelon of Great Lakes rosters right now, because these are teams that are fighting at the top of CRL already. You've got Akron Gold at the tippy top, Columbia College, St. Clair Gold, which is kind of an amalgamation of players in the St. Clair lineup, as there have been a couple players that qualified for RLCS events that can no longer compete in Great Lakes. And then Davenport Red, just a really solid B team and a really stacked Davenport program. And then Michigan State Green, the A team of Michigan State, surprisingly far down, I think, in the standings, but we'll talk about that more in a second. And then below them, Indiana Tech, who had better qualify for this LAN considering it is at their campus, Robert Morris, Drexel, Purdue, Rochester Christian, Michigan State's B team, and Grand Valley State University, all fighting for those last 3 spots, which I think those bottom 2 spots are definitely wide open at the moment. And I'll tell you why it's such a close race outside of 6th through 10th being separated by just 7 points overall right now. As we'll switch back to the bracket screen so I can talk about those bottom 4 teams first, as unfortunately I don't think any of those 4, maybe outside of Purdue, have a chance of actually advancing past lower round 1. And we'll start with GVSU. They're at the bottom of the standings as well with Michigan State B. And these are good rosters down here. They're just not quite at that level where they're competing with the top playoff teams in Great Lakes, which is the top 8 teams. Typically they play Swiss into single elim, a single elim being an 8-team lineup, which is typically the teams you see at the top of the bracket right now, filling out those 8 slots. And so I think GVSU and Michigan State B, I'll lump them both in. Those are good teams. They've got good youth on their roster, but they're in a developing stage right now. They can get good wins. They can beat your Drexels, your Indiana Techs, maybe your Davenport Reds, definitely your Purdues as well. But I don't think they're quite there to do so in an event as important as this. And the fall major back in December had some crazy results, so I might end up regretting this because those teams do have talent. But GVSU, Michigan State B, I've seen on or in Nightlight show matches this spring, and they look good. I don't think they're quite at that next level just yet. I think that's more for next season that they take that next step as programs. But hey, shout out Michigan State B for taking a game off of Northwood in the Colleague Madness event this week. They beat NIU in Game 7 to qualify for Colleague Madness and then looked pretty good against Northwood. So I'm glad to see that. They definitely got talent there, but if you're taking on probably Drexel, and then I think Davenport, Indiana Tech's definitely a 50-50 right there. But either way, those are teams that are going to come into that series with enough confidence, I think, to beat Michigan State B and GVSU. And then talking about Robert Morris, in the same boat. Not because they're developing youth per se, but they were forced to kind of a rebuild after Illuminus, who was their best player previously, ended up leaving the program back after the fall semester, and that forced Demented Sheep to kind of step up and take a role I don't think he was quite prepared for, to be the guy that RMU really heavily relied on to create space and opportunities for them, and they've struggled a bit. We'll go back to the rankings right here. Pretty good, a decent start to the season, and then 8-4, 14 minimum, probably still going to be 14 for the spring major. It's been tough to recover from losing Illuminus, but Purdue at the top, this is a team that really can keep up with those top 8 rosters, and they did play Davenport Red in Colleague Madness just this week. Davenport Red kind of took them down, but Purdue's got a really high ceiling, I think, as a roster. A lot of experience on that team. Enchanted has been there for eons. He's an absolute legend over there at Purdue. And they've got mechanical talent, I think, as well in Plane and Duck, but they have a serious floor, and I don't think I've studied them enough to know why their floor is so low, but I could see them beating a Davenport Red, an Indiana Tech, a Drexel, and I could also see them losing to a Robert Morris, a Michigan State B, a GVSU. So we'll see what they do against the loser of Akron and Michigan State, which is an absolutely devious pull for Purdue. I don't think they escape from that, honestly, with Akron and Michigan State both fighting for spots going into LAN, but hey, they've got potential. Moving up the top side of the bracket, though, to talk more matchups as opposed to teams now. I will start with Akron Gold and Michigan State because this one's an interesting one. They've played twice in the entirety of this Great Lakes season. Michigan State got the win way back in one of the fall minors in the grand finals there, their one event win of the season. And then more recently in Spring Minor 2, it was a first round of the single elim bracket matchup between these two, and Akron Gold 3-0'd them. And then in Colleague Madness as well, since it is relevant, happened this week. They matched up round 1 in that 64-team bracket. I don't know what the odds of that were, but they match up, and Michigan State gets the win in 7. So this one's a bit of a toss-up for me. I really don't know how to predict it, considering Akron Gold swept them, but Michigan State have the most recent win. I think if I'm looking purely at Great Lakes results, Michigan State have more to fight for in this event. So if I were to be a betting man, I think the Spartans get it, but Akron Gold is always hungry. They're just a competitive roster, and so I can just as easily see them winning this series, though. Officially, I will give Michigan State the Bepic prediction edge here, I suppose. Still, a very interesting one, considering Michigan State, I'm sure, are trying to work their way up from 5th place right now in the rankings. Looking at this next matchup, though, St. Clair and Rochester Christian is super interesting to me because RCU need to get wins, I think, early on here. And St. Clair's a decent matchup for them, as officially on Liquipedia, I'll pull it up. The roster is listed as Christian, Fabzo, and Nitrix, but they have played with Vesh at times in Great Lakes event, so I'm not sure what the starting lineup is going to be. But if we look at the standings here, St. Clair is in a pretty good position. They're in 3rd right now. They've already got LAN locked in. RCU, not so much. They missed the first event of the season and have had a lackluster, I think, string of results as well. 2 top 8 exits in the spring, and they're currently on the outside looking in. They're 2 points back of Drexel at the moment, and like I said about Robert Morris, I don't know if RMU's going too far, so that spot is wide open, and I think RCU between Purdue and Drexel, I think, have the best odds of making a deep run in this major. I've been critical of RCU throughout this season. I don't think they're always on the same page with one another, but they've cleaned it up recently. They've had good results, but they did lose round 1 of Colleague Madness, so we'll see if that does translate to the spring major. I think I still back St. Clair in their round 1 matchup, but RCU in the lower bracket really could snag a LAN spot pretty quickly because if they lose to St. Clair, they're playing Robert Morris, and if they beat Robert Morris head-to-head, I think it's a 6-point differential between 9th through 12th and 7th and 8th, so they could jump over Robert Morris right then and there and put themselves in prime position for a LAN spot. Now, Davenport and Indiana Tech is going to be a fun one. I think Davenport are definitely the favorites in this series, as right now they're in a better spot. They've looked better than Indiana Tech this spring, as Davenport has already secured a LAN spot thanks to their fall major and beyond run so far. Back in December, they placed top 3 in the fall major, got 28 points as a result of that, and have had steady semifinal results in both spring minors. So they're going to LAN here. Indiana Tech definitely has more to fight for, and history is somewhat on their side. I think there have been 2 head-to-heads between these two, and Indiana Tech has won one of them, Davenport's won the other. I think they've both been in Swiss, though, so not huge stakes on the line right there, but for Indiana Tech, they definitely have more pressure on their shoulders to perform in this event, considering the LAN is being hosted at their campus. So you want to make sure you qualify for LAN, and I don't think they should have any difficulties, Michigan State being, but MSUB have beaten Rochester Christian this season and could pull an upset there. So I think if you are Indiana Tech, you need the win here, especially if you're Bub. Watching your team try and qualify for LAN, that's a lot of extra stress if Davenport do end up getting the win over Indiana Tech. But this one's definitely an interesting one, and if I were a betting man, I don't know what the stream is choosing as the first round stream matchup, but I'd be expecting that one to be the choice, as it's the most enticing round 1 matchup for sure. And last but not least, Columbia versus Drexel, the 1 versus 8 seed matchup. I think Drexel have the ability to keep up with Columbia College. Obviously, their offense, led by Kevin, is pretty dynamic and exciting to watch, but Columbia, through and through, are CRL veterans, and I think just at a baseline, Columbia College is the better team in this matchup. They've got 1 head-to-head win over Drexel already this season, and I think that holds true here. Drexel can make a run in the lower bracket, but right now, I'll start my predictions segment of the video. I'll hit on my top 3. I'm not going to predict the entire bracket here, but I think Columbia and Akron are the 2 top teams in this event. I think they are the 2 teams that match up in the grand finals. I think it's a repeat of the fall major way back in December, because as much as some things change, a lot stays the same. But no matter what ends up happening, the paths that they have to take to the grand finals, I think it's Akron and Columbia at the end of the day. Those 2 teams have been at the top of Great Lakes all season, and I don't foresee them giving up their number 1 and number 2 spot going into the LAN. I'll say Columbia College wins it all. I bet on them a couple of times this week in Colleague Madness and the CRL Open, but they've let me down a little bit. So I'm going to keep betting on them. Sunk cost fallacy. And see if the Cougars can't take the spring major. I think they take first. I think Akron Gold takes second. And I'll say Davenport gets another 3rd place. So a complete repeat of the fall major. And my predictions are just extremely boring here, unfortunately. But those teams have looked good recently. And I expect them to hold that up here in the spring major and going into LAN. And I've decided just now that I'm going to also predict who I think is going to make it to LAN right here, which I think is the most exciting storyline heading into the spring major for obvious reasons. So the race in my eyes really is between Indiana Tech, Robert Morris, Drexel, Purdue, and Rochester Christian. Obviously, I'm discounting Michigan State B and GVSU. Sorry, guys, I love you. You'll have to try next season, unfortunately. Don't miss events in the fall. Then maybe you're back in the race here. But this is a big-time race, especially for Indiana Tech. As I mentioned, they're the host college for this, and I think they qualify outright with the round 1 win over Davenport. So I think they secure probably that 6th seed. I don't see a way where they can catch up to Michigan State unless the Spartans just bomb out, lose round 1, and then drop to Purdue. But I think Purdue gets screwed by having to play the loser of Akron and Michigan State. So I think they go out with the 58 points that they've earned already. That has them on the outside. I think Robert Morris also drop round 1. And so that opens the door for Drexel and Rochester Christian. And I'll go back to the bracket here, show who they would end up playing. RCU, if they lose to St. Clair, would play Robert Morris. They can jump over RMU right there with a head-to-head win. I think they do that. I think Drexel loses to Columbia College, and they play GVSU. I think they also make it to the next round, but drop to either Indiana Tech or Davenport, whoever does end up losing there, and more than likely beating Michigan State being. And so I think RCU and Drexel get in with those lower round 1 wins, and that should effectively seal up the race unless someone goes on a crazy win. If Purdue makes an upset over Akron Gold or Michigan State happen, then we could see some crazy scenarios. But I think it's pretty cut and dry here with Robert Morris going out round 1 to the loser of St. Clair RCU, and then Drexel and RCU eclipsing them to secure those final 2 spots on LAN. Either way, hopefully you enjoyed my preview video of the Great Lakes CRL Spring Major. I appreciate you for watching. Make sure you do support Great Lakes CRL this weekend for their Spring Major and for their LAN next month. Follow them on socials. Follow them on Twitch, where the broadcast will happen. You can see the times up in the bracket. 4 p.m. Central is when the round 1 of Spring Major kicks off. I believe I'll be on the call for that over at twitch.tv/GreatLakesCRL. So make sure you're there supporting regional collegiate esports. It's going to be a lot of fun, but like I said, hopefully you enjoyed my preview video and it helped you get the storylines down, because there are a lot of them going into this Spring Major, gearing up for LAN. It's LAN season, and I could not be more hyped for that. But I'll see you at the broadcast. Peace out.